Hello everyone, welcome to Nareen's Live with MS. And my name is Nareen and it's time for Friday Findings. And boy, are there some very interesting things that I do have to share with you regarding some of the um, news articles I actually read. So, without further ado, one thing I am actually going to try doing is pretty much explain each article um, in the way I understood them. Both of these articles do reference different studies that have occurred in the United States and Canada. So as a result, while I might not know a lot of the sciences, one thing I can definitely say is that both of these both of these studies are actually very interesting, and of course you can read all about these studies um, i- uh, all about these studies in the links that I have actually provided in the description of this video. So without further ado, why don't we get started? The first story I have for you today is in regards to the fact that, if you are a patient with MS, and I, of course, am a patient with MS, one thing that you might notice is the fact that, your balance does tend to degrade over time, right? You do have the ability to actually lose your balance. That is one of the reasons why I'm a little scared to pretty much start yoga nowadays, especially because I know that some of the things I was able to do a few years back, I might not have the same success in it. And the reason for that, at least what scientists have found in relation to this, is that MS as a condition does cause inflammation of the cerebellum, which is one part of the brain which actually is in charge of your balance, is in charge of your energy, is in charge of a lot of different things. But it is one part of the brain that definitely does experience a lot of inflammation. And as a result of this inflammation, what ends up happening is that the brain is starts getting tired of creating the same signals, and so starts to pretty much you know get a little tired and just slowly stop working, right? That is one of the reasons why you know you do see this progressive worsening of your balance. You do see a progressive worsening of your energy, your walking, all of these things. And it just happens to be the result of this overall inflammation of your cerebellum, which is causing all of the different receptors in that part of the brain to just get a little more tired of transmitting information, transmitting signals to each other. And so as a result, you will see uh, slow but steady deterioration in uh, your balance for a lot of things. And so it is it's not, I mean, technically it is you, but at the same time it's not, because you know you haven't done something or you haven't worked out. I mean, of course, doing regular exercises does help maintain the level of information that is happening in certain places. It can definitely try and maintain, or at least you know try to prevent uh, a faster inflammation of your cerebellum. But at the end of the day, if it is going to be a little inevitable that you know your cerebellum is going to you know face inflammation, and as a result, you know it's going to be a little difficult for your nerves, your receptors to kind of interact with each other. It's just your brain slowly running out of battery to pretty much make that happen. Of course, this is more or less what this study has talked about. But considering that we actually have a certain understanding of this information, this is actually the first step to pretty much finding what might be a certain response to this, what could be a certain therapy that can be used to prevent the inflammation from being as permanent as it might be, and actually allow us to maybe regain some of that balance, right? But of course, if you are maintaining what you consider a healthy lifestyle, exercising often, ensuring that you are able to do certain things, making sure that you rest enough every day, I am pretty sure that you can at least slow down the progression of you losing your balance at any point in time. So that covers the first story that I wanted to talk about. So now let's go over the second. So for our second story, we are actually going to talk about something that might not technically appeal to me, technically be meant for me, but considering that you know when we are talking about MS, there are a lot of things that do happen at the same time. And so the first thing I do want to talk about is the fact that scientists have found two specific biomarkers where, if they do find out the ratio of these two specific biomarkers, one marker being CXCL13 and the other marker being BAFF, both of these are protein biomarkers that are present in your body. And getting a ratio of them will actually help understand you know um, whether you have a progressive condition and how quickly your progressive condition, especially when you have progressive MS, is actually progressing, right? to say, because I could not find a better word. So why am I talking about this? Well, as you know, MS comes in many different forms, but usually the two main forms that are available is, of course, the RRMS, the remitting relapsing form of MS, which I was diagnosed with when I was diagnosed with MS, and of course the primary progressive MS, where you see a slow degradation of or the slow appearance and the slow setting in of all of the different symptoms that are there in MS. But of course, with remitting relapsing forms of MS, that can also turn into something that is called secondary progressive MS, where slowly over time your version of MS can also start going from a relapsing form, where you have relapses happening at a time at a certain frequency, to actually getting progressively worse over time, right? Progressively seeing an increase in your symptoms. So what are we talking about when we talk about the ratio of these two, right? Usually what ends up happening is that MS is a condition where we are talking about a lot of inflammation, and usually what ends up happening with progressive conditions, especially progressive MS, is that there is almost a certain compartmentalized inflammation that ends up happening. And it just so happens that these two biomarkers that scientists have found, seeing the ratio in between them actually gets them to understand that yes, compartmentalized inflammation is happening, and that might actually be one of the reasons for progressive MS, right? Especially primary progressive MS. So that is one of the big things that is happening. And of course, one thing that actually furthers this study is to note that BTK inhibitors, which is a certain form of drugs, right, best known to, because they are labeled, at least their scientific name is labeled with the suffix NIB. So one medication that is actually in trials right now is tolebrutinib. There are a few more drugs that are being that are in the trial phase for progressive forms of MS, and BTK inhibitors are actually one of the things that are proving to be actually successful in um, combating the progressive forms of MS, because they are targeting the compartmentalized inflammation. They are also targeting, the increase in CXCL13, so that the ratio between CXCL13 and BAFF remains under control, so that you can probably see a slowdown of your progression of primary progressive MS, or even if it actually does go to a further level to even a secondary progressive MS. So that covers everything I have to say about the second story that I have regarding MS that I did read today. Of course, I don't really I just pretty much understood the gist of what they were both of these stories were talking about. But of course, do share your thoughts about this. So finally, so hopefully you did so you did like both of these stories that I did share with you. Of course, you can actually read the articles that I referenced in the description of this video. And one thing that would be great is if you can give your thoughts, give your insights, to give your your own comments on what you think both of these studies, what can be the end result of these studies, right? If both of these studies do hold true, where can MS treatment, where can MS progression, where can MS even MS diagnosis reach as a result of these two studies that I discussed today. And of course, apart from that, I do also want to ask, what did you think of this new style of me actually doing Friday findings, where I, take a little breather in between each and every, article, so that, I actually know what I'm going to talk about. Please do share your thoughts. Please do share your comments. Please do share your insights. And of course, you can share your experiences as well, so that we can get the conversation started. And of course, considering it is Friday, I do want to wish you a very happy weekend, right? This is the first full weekend of 2026, so I do hope you have something exciting planned for you. I do hope you do get the you are not in a position where you already need to rest after just 1 week of 2026, or one full week of 2026. But knowing what is happening in the world, I mean, I will not blame you if you do use this weekend to rest and recover, because very soon we will be coming over to we will be starting over a new week. And with that said, I do hope you have a great weekend. I hope your Friday was successful. And before I leave you, I just do want to wish you a good night and sweet dreams. And I will reach you tomorrow. Good night, everyone, and happy weekend.